We believe an economy is no worth a puff unless it actually makes great places and fulfilled lives. We take the economy from the Greek word oikonomos, which means keeper of the household. We say an economy needs to be brought home to the places, to the household, to our hearts, if you like. And what's happened in recent times is the economy has become detached from our hearts. It's a social construct, and we should be able to make an economy in any way we want. Yeah? Calderdale's economy can be made in the way we wish. We shouldn't just accept casino capitalism or whatever goes on. We should say, hold on here, we're going to step in and we're going to make an economy that truly works for this place. And this is what you're doing with your inclusive economy strategy and all the other stuff that you're involved in. I thought we'd just start off just by very outlining, and Robin alluded to it, this age we're in. We're in an age of extraordinary turmoil, an age of crisis. And interestingly, this here in terms of the recession, the recession of 2008 is the worst recession ever. We got out of it, but very, very slowly. So we're in an existential crisis moment, yeah, in terms of all those different complexities. And some people, you can get like drowned by that complexity. Oh no, the way to get out of that complexity is to collaborate like mad, and also to experiment like mad. Many, many different things to try that kind of foreshadow a better future. So we shouldn't get cowed by this existential context. We need to actually say, hold on, what can we do? And let's collaborate out of this, and let's try things. This is from an Italian communist. You had a Gramsci. Who said a Gramsci? Communists. Sorry. He said, the old is dying and the new cannot be born. In this interregnum, there is a great diversity of morbid symptoms. And there's a lot of morbid symptoms around. I was at the Tory Party conference yesterday. There's a lot of morbid symptoms around. Yeah? And in that interregnum, that space between the old world and the new world, you are all building a new world, but we're not there yet. Yeah? And so we're in this kind of funny space. And that's where experimentation and to try things is so important, and to collaborate, to create this new order, if you like, this new world. And we're cursed and lucky in this time, because it is hot. It's hot. We know the social pain out there, don't we? We know the problems. But we're lucky, because I think we're actually forging something very different. A new social contract, a new deal. Yeah? And in each place across the country and the world, we're doing that. We should be enlivened as people from the public, social, commercial sectors think, wait, we're building something that's kind of new because we're in this such period of transition, this interregnum. Are you getting me? I don't know where I'm going next, actually, because I did these slides so hurriedly. So I don't know what I'm going to surprise as well as you are. Here we are. Yes, this. Oh. Roberto Ungar, he's a Brazilian philosopher politician. He says in this interregnum, we're in the age of experiments. Yeah? And each of those things you try, right, foreshadow a bigger future, a better future. So even to try the smallest thing is actually good. Let's do it, try it. And if it works, amplify and scale it up. And I think in some senses, Calderdale, through all the things you've done, you've tried things. And then you've thought, hey, we'll do a bit more of that. And you'll do one little renovation, say, in the built environment. That worked. Then you'll do another one. It's that spirit of adventure that's so key. And what's interesting about this sort of innovation spiral is you start something, you put it together, you get a prototype, you sustain it, and then you scale it up. And as I don't know Calderdale well, but I see that spirit here. There's a spirit of adventure, a spirit of collaboration, a spirit of trying stuff. And you're in I don't know where you are in this, maybe in different bits of your plan, you're in different bits, but certainly you're in this mission to let's collaborate, let's try experiments, and then scale up and you'll get systemic change. Yeah? And of course, the part of the systemic change, there's no one economy. There's three. The public, the social, and the commercial. Yeah? And you need to collaborate like mad across those. That's what great places are. Great places are not just the public sector, oh, we're stewarding this place. And it's not just the social sector going like, yeah, it's all about citizens. Or it's not about the commercial sector, we are the wealth creators. No, it's all together. And if one gets out of cult of the other, you won't have a great place. And you've got them all. Who's in the social sector here? Commercial. Public. Too many of us. Yeah. Wealth. Wealth is a defining feature of all economies. And we need to think about who owns it, where does it go, how do we get our hands on it? And economic and social life are two sides of the same coin. And we need to, and I'll explain a little bit more about that wealth thing from a business perspective in a minute. What's interesting about wealth is, and the local particularly, come on, yeah. When you buy from a small business, you're not helping a CEO buy a third holiday home. You're helping a little girl get dance lessons, a little boy's team jersey, mum and dad put food on the table, shop local. What's fascinating about business is that business, in its very essence, is an act of, it's a transactional collaborative act. It's an act between we need something and these people are going to provide it, yeah? And it's a transaction. It's a transaction that's deeply important in terms of the glue of a place. And what's interesting about that transaction and our maturing as consumers has meant that we are becoming much more discerning as consumers just by the way capitalism emerged. So in the 1950s, this is a King's Cafe in Glasgow, where I used to go many years ago. This is not for the 1950s, but if you went in this cafe in the 1950s, bear with me on this, right? You would go in and go like, right, I want a cup of coffee. And the woman would go, it would be a woman, black or white, and I'd go, black. That was it. Yeah, I just got the coffee, a transaction. Boom, got the transaction, yeah, drank the coffee. Here's now this coffee shop, don't know where it's from, the science of socialising. Yeah. Now, as consumers, we just don't want that point-to-point transaction. We actually want a relationship. We're interested in, is that person getting paid a living wage? Is this coffee cup recyclable? Yeah. Where is it sourced? We as consumers have matured in terms of how we think about an economy. And that authenticity is a competitive advantage. And that authenticity is by its very nature relational. It's related to the place and related to a range of other things in terms of how the social life of place. And I think the future of the economy and the future of business, the people that succeed will be relational businesses. They'll be the ones that understand authenticity and how it relates to the place and how it accommodates that broad understanding of how we want things, not just the point-to-point, but this wider relational aspects. So wealth is an important part of our economy, and we've done a lot of work, including here in Calderdale, on wealth. We're interested in wealth and how we capture it and how it becomes more relational. And here's the kind of place we're working. And there's 4 features to this work we're doing. We're interested in those anchor organisations that are not going anywhere. Yeah? Those are the big public institutions. Calderdale Council are not going to become Kirklees Council. Yeah? The hospital here in Calderdale is always going to be in Calderdale. There's businesses here like Lloyd's, yeah, that hopefully is embedded in this place. It's international, but it's embedded in its identity with this place. It's very unlikely to leave here. It's inert. Those are anchors in this place. And what we need to ensure is that those anchors are in that place. They're doing the utmost to ensure there is it does good by that place. And I was just speaking to yourself, I can't remember your name, in terms of all the great stuff you do in Calderdale because you're here. We want to maximise that anchor approach. Yeah? Who do you employ? Are you employing local people? Yeah? What's your supply chain? Is there something you could assist in terms of that wider supply chain that's more local? What do you do with your land, property and assets? Is that locally and socially virtuous? And finally, how do you use your powers to improve the supply chains to make that more local and more socially virtuous? The organisations that are here and inert are fundamentally important to the future destiny of this place. And we need to max like death. Max their positive aspect to that place. Now, procurement's an important thing around this, public sector procurement particularly, and I think procurement from the commercial sector. And some people say, oh, that's new stuff. This is from 1854, the Borough of South Shields, right, in terms of procurement. And this is, I don't know what the Watch Committee was. Anybody remember that was? Robin, you remember? The Watch Committee. It's buying 14 top coats, 14 pairs of trousers, and 14 hats. It's a tender document being emitted by this bit of the public sector. Yeah? And the interesting thing it says here, the lowest tenders will not necessarily be accepted. Why the hell? Because they're interested in quality, surely, but they're also maybe interested in, well, how can we make sure we get local suppliers? How do we have a relationship, potentially, with this place? So that, from a public sector point of view, is what needs to happen in procurement. But I would say businesses need to think about that local economic ecosystem that through their own supply chains they try to support too. Preston. Preston, we looked at 6 anchors. This is these 6 public sector anchors in Preston in 2012. £750 million. It included the police, the county council, the local council, the housing association, the colleges. 5% was spent within Preston, 39% was spent in Lancashire. We worked like mad with those anchors and their procurement practice, and also worked mad with the potential businesses and suppliers. We found some strange things in this supply chain, of why they weren't getting local businesses into that supply chain. And we found quite weird reasons, kind of odd reasons, like they just didn't like the council. Yeah? Bad relationship, weren't collaborating. After 5 years, 18% within Preston, 80% within Lancashire. It's moved up through this densification of the ecosystem, through collaboration in the ecosystem. And what's fascinating from a business point of view in this is some businesses started to think about this idea and thought, hey, there's something in that. Why are we got a skip hire who's coming all the way down through Lancashire, Lancaster? Why don't we get a skip hire that's based in Preston? Yeah? It started to think about its own suppliers and how we could make them more local, and also suppliers that were also thinking social about things. We had that one already. So just a little bit about our work in Calderdale. We've helped to map council spend and social value. We know what the situation in Calderdale. There's potentially need to more training and assistance on the inclusive economy strategy. And we've done some interviews with a range of public and social players. Arguably, we need to talk more with the commercial sector in this. And I thought I'd finish just with some thoughts I have on Calderdale. I think there's a lot of great stuff happening here, and I'm sure it's going to be reflected in the inclusive economy strategy. A lot of great stuff happening in Calderdale. But I'm just wondering, are we really, truly capturing all that, the micro stuff? I think there's a lot of experimentation, lots of stuff we're not even capturing. And I'd like to understand exactly what's happening in some of these towns more, and some of the places. There's maybe small innovations that I think is partly not heard of or not recognised that we could amplify even more. I think this is quite a very vibrant place, and I think there's stuff we're maybe missing. There's huge energy in the social sector. I'm impressed by the social sector in this place. And is it truly being realised as much as it could be? I think there's elements where it's kind of put in a box of the kind of, that's the social sector. I think there's innovation in that sector that needs to be respected and amplified more. And perhaps there's more we can do on the anchor approach. Finally, I just want to mention on just on inclusive growth and inclusive economy. I think it's really good that Calderdale have got an inclusive economy approach. And it differs from inclusive growth in one fundamental way. Inclusive growth says that we get growth and then we make sure it's more decently distributed. So it's after the fact of growth. Yeah? What an inclusive economy says is the economy itself The very function of the economy in itself is inclusive. Yeah? Not with or without growth. It means that people have a stake in the economy. Inclusive growth would kind of mean, let's get growth wherever, doesn't matter what kind of growth, and then we'll redistribute it and we'll get people in the jobs. Inclusive economy says, let's have a mixed economy. Let's have a distributed economy, a plural economy, so everyone has a stake in that economy, not just as employees, but actually owning businesses, feeling part of that economy before the fact of growth. And that's much, much more powerful and much more distinctive from an inclusive growth approach. That's progressive. That is the future.